Just like our own games of Magic, R&D is a place where every card counts. Let's look at some of the great gameplay crammed into every corner of Born of the Gods.
One-word card names are a precious resource in Magic, so when we deploy them, we want to be able to make sure that there's going to be some cool use out of them. So it's a bit of a special occasion when a card gets a one-worder. Asphyxiate is something where we know this spell might come up more than once. So it is an investment in the future to name a card, such a splashy name.
Impetuous Sun Chaser is a card that we actually spent a lot of effort on. It doesn't look that impressive. It's this simple little common, but I feel like it really encapsulates very well the idea of here's Icarus with his wax wings and he's out of control and he's flying towards the sun and he won't listen and he runs into trouble. And your Impetuous Sun Chaser is going to run into trouble a lot, I think.
I love the name Eye Gouge. That came from a list that I'd put together really early in design about sort of top-down cards. So Eye Gouge, people were always putting their eyes out in Greek myth, so that's where that came from.
When I started on Born of the Gods design, Scry wasn't in Theros. Scry was added to Theros, and then suddenly that's impacting all of your Born of the Gods designs. And that happens a lot, where you need to have your ear against the wall to see what's going on in the development of the previous set to make sure that you can incorporate those changes into the set you're working on.
And the way I always explain to people why Scry is so important is, have you ever ended the game and looked at the next card in your deck and like, that would have mattered? Well, with Scry, it does matter.
We usually try to get a card from each new mechanic in the set at least somewhere near constructed so that people can be excited about thinking about playing it for standard. The one that was the most interesting to try to get there was Fanatic of Xenagos. I had a couple people complain to me in the end that the difference between the modes on that card was not large enough for it to be a satisfying thing to play through. But secretly, that's actually how we got the card as powerful as it is, because the bigger the difference between the two sides, the more power your opponent has to make your card not as good as you want. So as we worked on that card and we kept bringing the two halves closer together, it got closer and closer to the way we wanted it to be.
I am in love with Chromanticore. I played it every opportunity in our limited playtesting. I would go 5-color. I would run it out there. It is awesome, and then it got an awesome punny name, so I love it even more.
Champion of Stray Souls, I think, was the last card put in the set. So this was a very late hole-filling exercise. We already had the sketch back, and we knew it had to be a black mythic card. And so I thought back to Legends, one of the very earliest Magic sets. And one of the coolest cards there was Hell's Caretaker. So I thought, what if we had a Hell's Caretaker where you could sacrifice as much as you want to get back that many creatures instead of just trading one for one? So giant Hell's Caretaker.
All right, so Arbiter the Ideal, awesome new Sphinx in Born of the Gods. Its ability can put a card from your library onto the battlefield if it's an artifact, creature, or land, and it turns it into an enchantment. Now you may notice it puts a manifestation counter on it, which is weird because the counter doesn't actually do anything. It's an enchantment whether that counter is there or not. But they wanted something like a memory aid so you can look at it and say, there's an unusual effect here. Now originally in design, I think it was called a divinity counter, which is weird. Divinity counters actually showed up in Kamigawa and meant something to the gods there, so we didn't really want that confusion. So we changed it to something that doesn't show up on other cards.
A pendulum we like to swing in creative is the pendulum of, we call it high or low magic. It's a game about magic. There's always magic in every world you go to. But in some planes, we focus on subtler representations of magic. If you go to Innistrad, for example, there are, a curtain rustling could be a spell, or a shadow against the wall. In Theros, we went a little more epic. This is the place where you see gigantic columns of fire. You see beams of light coming from the heavens. This is a world with gods and heroes and monsters. So you're definitely going to see magic and showy magic.
Astro Cornucopia is a pretty cool card that I designed. It's similar to a card in Worldwake called Everflowing Chalice, which is kind of like an XX card, but it uses multi-kicker. So the Astro Cornucopia You can pay a whole ton of mana and get a whole ton of mana out of it every turn. And it's pretty sweet art too. And a cornucopia is a Greek mythology thing.
Fated Infatuation is, for those of you that love the Master of Waves deck, this card is really amazing. Like, if you can get out one Master of Waves and then play another one and then scry 2 and maybe get, more stuff or permission or whatever else you need, like, Fated Infatuation is just an amazing card for the mono blue devotion decks.
There are 2 black removal spells in the set that I find rather amusing. One of them is Bioblight, which is essentially our reaction right after Gatecrash is released to Burning Tree Emissary. We were sort of afraid right at the beginning of that standard when you saw stuff like Tomoharu Saito's red-green deck that was just dumping out billions of the same little dudes, and we thought, hey, it would be really nice if we had a way to kill 3 Burning Tree Emissaries on turn 2. So there's that card. The other card that I find amusing for probably terrible reasons is Asphyxiate, which is basically a line of text that I thought was fun that I stole from Kaijudo. So we had never made that card before, but Destroy Target Untapped Creature was an interesting thing that I was enjoying playing with in a different game, so I stole it.
Peregrination is one of my favorite art in the set, and it's showing a young man leaving Setessa. So what happens in Setessa is, they take in orphans from all over Theros, boys and girls, and they raise them to a certain age. But because it's a matriarchal society, the boys are encouraged as young adults to peregrinate into the world and go wandering. And so this is a young man who has come of age and is leaving his mothers of Setessa and going out into the world.
Whims of the Fates is a card targeted towards the casual player group, targeted towards multiplayer, targeted towards Commander, and it is going to be fascinating to see what people do when presented with this card. Are you going to divide your permanents into 3 separate piles of equal value? Are you going to go all in one pile? Or are you going to leave one pile blank and just see how things go?
I'm a huge Commander fan, so I tried to make sure that the legendary creatures in Born of the Gods would make pretty cool commanders.
In the course of this particular set, this was one of the strongest multiplayer playtest teams that I think we've ever had operating, and speaking as the lead developer, the feedback that they gave to me was super useful, and I think a lot of the cards in the set are just way better for multiplayer than they otherwise would have been.
So where to position artifacts in a block where they are not the focus is interesting because they are important. They are a part of the game. You want to make sure you're introducing some every time, but they can't be the focus of the set. And what I found with Theros block artifact design is that they become a great place to put a lot of the awesome top-down flavor in the set. So like the Gorgon's Head is a card that it's not the greatest Magic card ever, but it is amazing flavor.
I think doing a small set, following a large set, there's a lot of juggling that goes on. So let's talk mechanics. Okay, so I look at mechanics, like Bestow. It's the glue, it holds everything together. I gotta have Bestow, of course. Heroic is the whole thing we're trying to build together, trying to create the feel we need. Heroic's doing a very important job there. Okay, so we need to have Heroic. Then Devotion is representing the field between the gods. In fact, I need to show it going down over time, so I need Devotion, like I literally need to show, so I need to have some of it to show the decline. And then Scry was greasing the wheels and trying to do things, and just development needed it, so that was important. Now also, I needed to do new mechanics, and so we came up with Inspired, we came up with Tribute, and both of them worked really well, and so those had to go in. But that meant not everything could fit in, so sorry, Monstrosity, you just didn't have room.
A journey that began with Theros continues now with Born of the Gods, ready for you to create your own MTG moments of myth and legend. Join us next time when our journey will be completed, a journey into Nyx. But until we meet again on Inside R&D, I'm your host Rich Hagan saying bye.